Last topic of conversation for today is short-term rentals because now, and you and I talked about this quite some time ago, but some of the provinces have really stuck their nose in the short-term rental market. Some of them are putting very hard stops to it. This is happening in British Columbia right now. You'll speak to that in a second. And if I rewind the clock, Patrick, it was not long ago that when COVID first happened, we talked about student rentals and we talked about how people had to be very careful around the student rental market, and that we just a lot of people buy real estate, and if they only have one option like short-term rental or student rental, sometimes they still proceed with their real estate investment even though they only have one exit option or one pool of candidates where that property becomes cash flow positive. That's very dangerous in our opinion, Patrick. And short-term rentals, after the student rental kind of cohort fell off during COVID, short-term rentals, which rebounded huge during COVID after the first kind of couple lockdowns and all that, uh, short-term rentals went off the charts. And in fact, they're still super, super strong. What's happened is now the governments, whether it's municipalities or provincial governments, have stuck their nose in there. We hate it when this happens. Let me say for myself, I hate it when the government sticks their nose in business affairs. But that being said, what's happening now is they're putting a hard stop to some of these short-term rentals, and you got owners that are going to lose their shirt because that property will not cash flow under any other circumstance other than short-term rental because of the high interest rates. People are panicking, Patrick.
Remember, like, share, subscribe, put it in the comments what you like about the show, even what you don't like about the show. Let us know. Let's get those algorithms going. Well, let's face it, you got some big challenges. So first off, the government looks at it and says, let's get rid of this short-term rental and then get these into the long-term rental pools. So in other words, they're trying to increase supply by shutting down short-term rentals. The challenge that they're going to face, and this is an interesting one, you're going to see it, I think, in some regions where people are going to be forced to sell. You literally cannot get enough cash flow if you're renting out a unit that you did the budget around short-term rentals, where you're, let's say, going to generate $6,000 or $8,000 a month, and all of a sudden from a rental on a long term you're only going to get $3,000 or $4,000 a month. You're just not covering the load that particular property has. So first off, I think we're going to see that in some regions. I think you're going to see a spike in supply of people wanting to sell. They're not going to go to a long-term rental because it won't carry the cost of it, if you will. You've got a number of people who are into pre-built scenarios where they actually bought it based on the fact that they're going to do short-term rentals. And I'll use Kelowna as an example, tourist town. I think they have almost a couple million tourists come through that city. What the heck are they going to do? They don't have the hotels, number one, to accommodate. They don't have those rooms. A family of 5 is really hard pressed to come into any city and say, okay, we're going to rent rooms. Number one, there isn't that many rooms. Number two is that if you got that family of 5, generally you want to cook, you want to hang out as a family, you want it to be more home-like. So all of a sudden that's going to shift. I think that this, as things often are with government, they're not considering the unintended consequences. They're not really looking at it. So it is going to be messy. That comes into effect, by the way, May 1st, 2024. And I think we're going to see some real shifts in some markets where short-term rental, what are you going to do in Kelowna if you got nowhere to stay? What's that going to do to the tourist industry in Kelowna? Let's just say ripple effect, unintended consequences.
That's exactly, Patrick, what I wanted to talk about, which is the tourism industry. I mean, listen, these short-term rentals are popular because they're freaking awesome. That's the bottom line. They're not popular because they're so much cheaper. Like back in the day, yeah, they used to be so much cheaper than a hotel room, but a lot of these short-term rentals now are priced very similar to hotels. And it's not like hotels are starving. It's not like hotels are losing their shirt. All the good hotels are just slammed booked. I mean, you and I travel a ton, and like these things are just booked. So the point is the hotel industry is doing very, very well. If you run a good hotel, you have a good property, you're doing very, very well. And these short-term rentals are a fantastic option. And I think that the government or whoever is making these dumb decisions is not looking at what you just talked about, the unintended consequences. They're just trying to get votes by saying,
oh, listen, we're we're going to ban these bad short-term rentals.
What about the gas people put in their cars? What about the restaurants? What about all the lodging? And now I'm starting to sound like Patrick Francie, but this kind of shit just drives me crazy because this is really, this was a good product, and these short-term rentals filled a void in the marketplace. That's why people use them, and it drives me crazy when any institution comes in and tries to regulate that. Let the market do what the market does best and sort itself out. That's my opinion.
Well, 100%. And I think that you look at what the impact of that is when you look at short-term rentals. Number one, the travel industry has changed overall. Flights are full. There's less flights. I mean, when we look at what's happening in the travel industry, people are trying to stay more provincial, more local, if you will. And even if people who are coming in, they're looking for short-term rentals. Again, it's about what kind of accommodations do you want for a family of 4, 5, 6, whatever that might be. They want to hang out. They want to cook their own meals, and or they want a place to hang out and watch television together as a family. Hard to do in a hotel room with 2 queen beds in it. So it's a real shift of what they're asking tourists to do, and I think it's going to be costly in a lot of these towns. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next year, and like everything, it will take a long time to work through the system. And ultimately, there'll be a lot of pain in between for those individuals. You can't deny how many people were buying short-term rental investments when that was the only strategy they had. Now they're going to be, I can't make money long-term. I got to sell. They're going to sell at losses. Maybe the market's going to get soft.
They're going to have to, Patrick. They're going to have to sell at a loss because there aren't that many options. The lender really doesn't care. The bank that finances acquisition really doesn't care what you do with the property. All they want is their interest payments. I got a phone call, literally, I'm not kidding you. I got a phone call 1 hour before we started recording this. Somebody called and wanted us to manage their short-term rentals because that's at Vistra Property Management. We do property management, but we don't do short-term rentals at all because it's not the game we play. But this person called me, Patrick, and get this. They said, how much can I rent this unit for? So my leasing team told them, well, you should be able to get, if it's a duplex, you'll get this, and how many bedrooms and so on and so forth. They said this, and I quote,
my mortgage is $7,000 a month. My mortgage.
So there's no rental unless this is a multifamily with 4, 5, or 6 units that you're going to cover that amount of rent in order to pay the operating expenses and pay the debt on that. There is no option. That person will have to sell. Otherwise, what are they going to do? So this short-term rental story is not over, Patrick. I think it's going to get very, very messy. And I encourage short-term rentals. Now I'm really sounding like Patrick, but I encourage these short-term rental owners to call their government officials and fight this shit, because I think we have to, and that's the other thing is people, Patrick, often take these kinds of regulatory changes laying down. But if you call your local representative, whoever that is, and you make your voices heard, sometimes it does make a difference. I know I've done it, and I've been surprised by the reaction of them. They often take it very, very seriously.
Yeah, well, the only thing in this particular case in British Columbia is the provincial government has said it and made it very, very clear. Municipalities cannot change the rules. Yeah. That's it.
I would still call. I'd still fight my case.
Oh, for sure. Complain. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's what we know about what's happening these days. If you like what you learned here, go to the description below and subscribe for our free Insiders newsletter, where you can also stay up to date for our upcoming events and our courses.
If you want to see more stuff like this, click here. If you want to see the entire show, click there.